This is the video for the third assignment. This is an assignment on percentages. To begin with, we have some fairly straightforward questions on conversion. Now, you could just write the answers. It does say show at least one step. So one step you might write is to say that 22% means out of 100, so it's 22 out of 100. 22 out of 100 is the same as 22 divided by 100, so it's 0.22. But as a fraction in its simplest form, you're going to simplify to 11 out of 50. The next one, 140% means 140 out of 100. Simplifying the fraction gives you 14 over 10. Simplifying further gives you 7 over 5. Okay, the next one, 0.05% means 0.05 out of 100. 0.05 out of 100, well, to get that to be a fraction, we can't have decimals in a simplified fraction. So we say that this is 5 over, say, 10,000, and then we can cancel the factor of 5 from the numerator and denominator to give us 1 out of 20. Or 1 out of, is that right? That's 10,000. I think I've written one too many zeros there. It should be 1 out of 2,000. Let's change that. All right. Excellent. Moving on then. Convert these to decimals. So 19 is just going to be 0.19. We know how to change a percentage to a decimal. 252% is 252 out of 100, so it's 2.52. 0.02% is 0.02 out of 100, so it's 0.0002. Okay, there's the conversions. Again, these are the fractions, and you can see how we can easily convert between the fraction and the decimal. Okay, let's move on to the next question. It says fill in the blanks. So we're going to be converting fractions to percentages, and to convert them, we're always going to write them out of 100. So 3/25ths, to get to 100ths, you're going to times numerator and denominator by 4. Timesing by 4 over 4 is the same thing as timesing by 1 over 1, or just 1, which is why these fractions are equivalent. Timesing the numerator by 4 gives us 12, so 12 hundredths, or 12 out of 100 is 12%. Okay, next one. So we notice that we have 17 of something times by 10 over 10 to get 2 hundredths. So that must be a 10 there to make the denominators work. So this must also be a 10. And this must be 170. So it's 170 out of 100, so it's out 170%. Okay, next one. We should all know that 8 times 12.5 gives us 100, and 7 times 12.5 is going to be 12.5 less than 100, which is 87.5, so this is 87.5%. Okay, next question. Convert these decimals to percentages. Very straightforward, 0.37. We could think of this as 37 divided by 100 if we wanted to, which is just 37%. Similarly, 23.12, we could think of this as 2,312 divided by 100, which is 2,312 out of 100, so it's 2,312%. Okay. Next, 0.0015 would be 0.15 out of 100, which is 0.15%. Next, convert these fractions to percentages. So these fractions are not nice fractions, so it's not easy to times numerator and denominator by a whole number to get hundredths, because 6 does not easily go into 100. So we could think about this as 5 divided by 6, so we could use a bus stop method for this one to convert it to a decimal. So to do 6's into 5, we can write it like this. 6's into 5 don't go, remainder 5. 6's into 50 go 8 times remainder 2. 6's into 20 go 3 times remainder 2, and so we're going to have this recurring decimal. 0.833 recurring as a percentage is going to be 83.3 recurring percent. And not 83.3%, it must be 3 recurring percent. You might also write this as 83 1/3%, since that's what it is. Okay, the next one, 16 ninths. Again, says 16 divided by 9, so we're going to use a bus stop method. How many 9s go into 16? Well, that goes once, remainder 7. How many 9s go into 70? 7 remainder 7, 7 remainder 7. So we have a recurring decimal again. So 1.77 as a percentage is going to be 17.7 recurring, 177.7 recurring percent. the final one here, 123 divided by 11, so we literally do 123 divided by 11 using the bus stop method again. 11s into 12 go once, remainder 1. 11s into 13 go once, remainder 2. 11s into 20 go once, remainder 9. 11s into 90 go 8 times, remainder 1. Remainder 2, sorry. And then 11s into 20 go once, remainder 8. So we're going to have this recurring decimal, 18181818. Okay, so to get from this decimal to a percentage, we times by 100, so it's going to be 1118.18 recurring percent. Okay, so check you're happy with that. These are the simple conversions. Let's move on to finding percentages now. So we're not going to use our primary school methods here. We're not going to find 1% and find 0.1% and find 0.2%, etc., etc. We're just going to use a multiplier, or rather we're going to turn this percentage wordy question into a decimal multiplication. 13.2% of 60 grams, well 13.2% is 0.132. Of means multiply. So we're just doing 0.132 times 60. We do this in our calculator and we get 7.92. In the next one, 123.1% is 1.231 as a decimal. Of means multiply. Times 230. Do this in our calculator. We get 283.13. Okay, next one, 0.16% as a decimal is 0.0016. Of means multiply. And so we do the multiplication in our calculator and we get 1.2 millilitres. Okay, very nice. So that's finding percentages. The next questions are on increase and decrease. And we're going to turn these increase and decrease into find questions. So if we increase 800 kilometres by 13.16%, we're finding 100% of 800 kilometres and then adding on 13.16% of 800 kilometres onto it. So really, we could think about finding 100% and 13.16%, which is the same as just finding 113.16% of 800. Okay, so this is the key to doing these types of questions. You change the increase-decrease question to a find question, and then you just change the percentage to a decimal, 1.1316, change of to multiply, and then you've got a nice multiplication to do in your calculator. This gives you 905.28 kilometres. Next question. Increase £70 by 222.5%. So this is the same as finding 322.5% because it's 100% and 222.5% more, which is 322.5% of 70. Change 322.5% to a decimal, which is going to be 3.225. Multiplied by 70, do this in your calculator, and you get £225.75. Okay, decrease 160 litres by 27%. So we would take 27% of 160 litres away from 100% of 160 litres. So really we're finding 73% of 160 litres. It's very similar to the increase questions. If anything, it's conceptually easier. 73% as a decimal is going to be 0.73. Of means multiply, and so we just do 0.73 times 160, and this will give us 116.8 litres. Okay, so they're increase-decrease questions using the conversion between decimals and changing an of to a multiply. The next set of questions are wordy questions, and it's about setting up an equation using some of the ideas we've already thought about, and then solving them. So let's begin. So if we look at this question, so we could say that the area of the garden is 160 metres squared. Okay. The area of the patio similarly is 45 metres squared, and the lawn must therefore be 115 metres squared. So we'll convert the next sentence into maths. And if we say, or let's answer the question, or let's write down what the question is first. So we're trying to ultimately find the percentage of the garden that is lawn. So what percentage of the garden is lawn? So it's easier to find out what fraction is lawn, and then to convert that fraction into a percentage. So what fraction is lawn? Have a think. What fraction of the garden is lawn? Well, it's 115 metres squared out of the total lawn, which is total garden, which is 160 meters squared. So this is the fraction which is lawn. If we do this in our calculator, 115 divided by 160, this will give us the decimal, 0.71875. And then we just convert this decimal to a percentage, which is 71.875%. Okay, so what do we do in this question? To find out the percentage, we found the fraction first. We use the fraction as a division, turn that into a decimal in our calculator, and then turn that decimal into a percentage. So I think this is the most straightforward, the cleanest way to do it. Let's look at the next question. Okay, so we have the area of the patio is this 28.8 meters squared, and this is 24% of the garden. So we could say that 24% of the garden is the patio, okay? We also know that the patio is 28.8 meters. So these two sentences, these two equations are the building blocks of this question. Now, I'm going to show you one method of doing it. You may have done it differently yourself, but I think this is the cleanest, most efficient way of doing it. So change the percentage to a decimal, change of to times, and I haven't changed the decimal yet, but I'll do that in the next line. Also notice how we can use a substitution. We know that P is 28.8, so let's just write, instead of writing P, write 28.8. So the next line, I'm going to write 24% as a decimal, and everything else stays the same. So this equation is now very straightforward to solve. We're trying to find the area of the garden first, and then that will allow us to find the area of the lawn afterwards. So let's then find out G. So to find G, we have 0.24 times G on the left-hand side. So if we divide both sides by 0.24, then we get 28.8 over 0.24. We do this in our calculator, and this gives us the area of the garden, which is 120 meters squared. Let me go back. And so the area of the lawn is just going to be 120 meters squared, subtract 28.8 meters squared, which is 91.2 meters squared. Okay, the final question in this test was slightly more complicated. You might start in the following way. You might write a sentence to describe the 30% of the garden as patio. So 30% of the garden of G is equal to the area of the patio, P. You might also write down S is equal to 36.4. Okay, we can now think about where to go from here. So if we know S is 36.4, then we know that the lawn rather, is 4 times as big. So the lawn is 4 lots of 36.4, which is 145.6. Okay, the next part of the question is where you might get a bit stuck. But if I know that 30% of the garden is patio, that means that 70% of the garden is made up of sand and lawn. So I could say that 70% of the garden is equal to the area of the lawn plus the area of the sandpit. Now, what else do I know? Well, I know that the area of the lawn plus the area of the sandpit is 36.4 plus 145.6, which gives me 182. So now I have an equation where I convert it into maths by changing the 70% into 0.7, turning the of into a multiplication sign, and then rewriting everything else the same. To make G the subject of this, since I have 0.7 lots of G, I'll just divide both sides by 0.7 to get G on its own, give me 182 divided by 0.7. When you do this in your calculator, you get the area of the garden to be 260 square meters. And that's the solution to the final question.